we're back and I've got more problems with the carbs. More problems, same problem really. In the last video I sorted the float out and yet I've still got runoff of fuel. What I'm finding is that on a hot engine and I'm cranking, I end up with, well, what's happening? It cranks and it cranks and it cranks and then it fires up. Yeah, but then on idle it will end up just ejecting all the the fuel overflow through that cranking process and dumping it, which makes me think about two things. One, I'm running too rich, in which case it's not actually firing up, so it's just gushing fuel into the inlet manifold. Asking around on the forum on the Facebook suggested, well, could be needle setting again, too rich, could be the needle's not actually seated properly, could be a variety of things. And the needles were the ones that were on the carbs at the when I got them. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to swap the needle over. I'll probably just replace the entire top of the carburetor with one that I had different problems before, but I'll replace that. I'm going to reset the mixture on both of them, go for a drive, and then see what happens. So I'm at the point where I have reset the mixture on this. So this is neutral. This is neutral. I've changed the, well, basically it's just the body of the diaphragm with another carburetor. In fact, the one that used to be on the car, which I think the needle's good. I think the O-ring on it is good. In fact, I know the O-ring is good because I used to have a leak and it was changed and then changed again, and then there was no oil leak. So, because if you find you're having the top of your dash pots up constantly, then the O-ring is either too small or it's perished or whatever. The other thing that I found was resetting. So I had to go resetting the carb that I'd put on, and the key wasn't really quite engaging. It didn't feel like a good engagement. So even though I'd replaced the O-ring on it and so on and so forth, but I don't think the mechanism was quite as good as it should be. Because this one was really easy to reset. You turn the key and you can see it move, and you turn the key with this one and it was not really moving, and then it would move and so on. So there could be something in it with the with the key and the needle and that sort of thing. Anyway, I'm going to give the engine a fire. So this is at neutral at the moment. I was going to try adjusting the mixture using the lifting the piston method. Apparently if you lift it by 2 millimeters, if the engine dies or over revs, then the mixture's not right, and you should be able to lift it by 2 millimeters and it shouldn't falter or anything. It should stay the same. So might try this method, see if that helps, rather than just sort of guess with like the how the engine's running. The other thing as well is that I was definitely running very, very rich compared to the setting of the carbs as they were before. These were like well turned in, so perhaps I don't need to adjust quite as much as I have been. Anyways, I'm going to start the engine now and see what happens. And there we go, running away. Started with no issue. A little bit lumpy for the first couple of seconds. FASD kicks in. Sounds perfectly nice. Engine speed. Yeah, it's kind of where we want it to be. Response is alright. We'll put it in gear. Perfectly fine. You can see the exhaust is looking alright. See, a little bit on the city side, so I must have been running way too rich. We'll take the spark plugs out. Little hole down there, can't see any fuel on the floor, but it was dumping fuel when it was hot. It was a hot start, so let the engine come up to temperature. I'll show you something else actually. Get a pointy stick thing. So when I was setting the carbs, balancing them and all that last time, one of the things that I found was after reconnecting, the engine speed would change, and you'd balance it, or I would balance it absolutely fine, very happy with that, and then I turn the engine off, reconnect the bar, and then go for a drive. And it was when I was playing around checking the balance and I had everything connected, I was amazed that the engine speed was substantially higher. I was balancing him about 800 RPM. 800? Yeah, about 800 RPM. And then it was running at 950. It's like, well, why is that? So what I've discovered since is this joint here. You see it's ever so slightly clean. You can wind this in and out to connect it, and this needed winding in by a whole turn, because what it was doing was actually tugging on the accelerator, and you can adjust it. Well, I mean, there's a few adjustments. You can adjust this. You can adjust this here, which controls the relationship between this carb and that carb and the pull. And so when I've set it such that when the engine speed remains at its sort of lowest, its most steady, that's where I've, like I said, if you tighten it up, the engine speed will speed up. If you release it, the engine speed will speed up. So you sort of get at that nice little low point. That's where I've set it. And that seems fine. Okay. Seems all good. Here the FASD's starting to turn itself off, must be coming up to temperature. Closing off gradually, it's still sucking, still got vacuum on it. I'd like to reiterate as well that these units get a really bad rap. And if anybody ever says, oh, you know, just replace it with a manual choke, if you've got an FASD and you can find the kit, all you end up doing is replacing that part there. So it's no longer controlled by engine temperature, it's just controlled by the lever. The actual FASD itself remains exactly the same. All you're doing is putting the plunger in and out. So, yeah, like how hard is it really to fix that? So, I mean, the one that was on the car before, that was a unit that I reconditioned, and it's just opening it up. There's a few things that you can do with it. I mean, the snorkel, the blue thing, if you put your thumb over it, you stop the air going into it, and at that point you're going to be cutting off the fuel air mixture. It stops. And also inside, that little nubbin in there, you can push that down. You push that down, you actually close off the unit to the inlet manifold completely. That's basically what's happening. You've got as this thermostat heats up, the wax module pushes the plunger out, which acts on a spring, which pulls that unit down, pulls that little nubbin down. It's really, really simple. The other things that it does as well, this is another access, another fuel access. For 2 seconds after cranking, for 2 seconds, there's a bimetallic strip in there, and it will just chuck extra fuel into the inlet manifold just to get the car started. After 2 seconds, that shuts off, and that's it really. You know, it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Anyways, I'm gonna keep this going. I'll end the little lesson in FASDs there. So the FASD is now shut off. You know, if I put my thumb over it, no change in engine speed or anything like that. I know that it's running lean. Oh well, it's neutral. The setting's neutral at the moment. It's kind of interesting, like how you can wind the needles in and out. You thought you might need to enrich the mixture in the neutral setting. You could back it out as well. I suppose those carbs get used on a variety of engines. There's no won't be able to see that really, but there's no dumping of fuel down that side. Let me get round the front. No dumping of fuel on that side. Engine speed's good, but I'll just check the engine speed. I'm happy with that. Maybe ever so slightly fast, but it's okay. The engine's up to temperature. You can hear this little ticking, squelchy sound somewhere. Like, I don't know what it is. It comes and goes. But it might be the water overflow, the expansion tank. Just can't. I mean, it's not horrendous. It doesn't sound like it's, you know, the end of the world or anything like that. Anyway, I've got the screwdriver in my hand because it's going to just that piston a little bit. You can hear that the engine falters a little bit. So that would suggest that it is too lean. I need to enrich it ever so slightly. Which you can't do while the engine's running, so you have to put the tool in, stop the engine, etc. It'd be a good opportunity now we're really hot to see if I'm dumping fuel on a warm start. 1/4 turn to enrich isn't quite right, but again, still hot starting, and there's no fuel. I'll put some cardboard down, make sure I can see the difference of fuel on the drive. It's not there. So I'm going to enrich it again a little bit more. So what else is really interesting about having rebuilt these carbs is when the car starts, there's no battery light anymore. So, because usually before I had to give it a little press of the accelerator for it to go out, for it to excite the alternator. So it's interesting how all these things are sort of interconnected. You fix one thing, and you still have a problem. So I reckon, it's what is it like? On ignition, and that for that little bit of time afterwards, it's hitting the right engine speed, and that's what's taking that light out. So, small win. It's quite good. Right, so we are on a half turn to enrich. Put that in. 2 mil. A little bit of faltering. Exhaust is still clear. And on this side. Falters just a little bit, but not as aggressively as it was before. Right, another 1/4 turn. Hopefully that might actually do it. Not had the hot start problems. No fuel dripping on the cardboard. It's good. Lift the back. Gone up. No change in engine speed. Still got a clear exhaust. it up by about 2 mil. I'd say there's no change in engine speed there really. So I think they're good. I'm going to get the rest of the car back together again, and then I'm going to take it for a test drive. Now that said, the engine speed has gone up a fair bit. Obviously I've been enriching the mixture, so that is going to bring things up. I should really back that down again to 750. And I suppose because it's a bit of, small pain to go and put everything back together, I think I'm going to quickly balance those carbs again. The connecting bar is removed, and just to prove the point with the throttle linkage, if I disconnect it, and put it back on again, there's no change in engine speed, so that is set correctly. I'm very happy with that. Engine speed, that's upside down, like 900 RPM. I have to bring it down. They are balanced both sides quite nicely, but I just need to bring that engine speed down to about 750. I'm going to do that by adjusting the idle screws. That was a little bit harder to balance this time than it was before. The only thing that I changed in this was the top of the piston that had the needle in place, and following the manual, rev it to 2,500. Obviously, like with gloves on, so you can actually hold the linkages. But like I say, rev it to 2,500, let that clear, and then balance, getting the airflow meter to read the same on both sides, get the engine speed constant. It got there, but wasn't as effortless as when I actually had the original top on, which makes me wonder whether that, I don't know, is it sealing properly, or well, no, it is the original top, isn't it? So what I've done is change the piston. So anyway, we'll see if I have the revving issue that I had in the past, because that would mean, well, it's got to be down to the piston, and therefore piston, maybe the needle. I don't know. But it'd be that sort of assembly that's in there. I also thought I'd let the engine cool down a little bit, because in doing so, catch a little bit of a whiff of fuel. But obviously, the pistons are slightly open. There's fuel in there, and so there could be that. I've still got the cardboard down, but there's nothing coming out the drain or anything. But of course, the other thought I had as well was, well, could it actually be vaporization? But that's got to get pretty hot for the fuel to vaporize, go up the little brass tube in the bowl. I suppose it's on this side, going up, and then sort of coming down, and then sort of condensing to run off. And it was a hot start issue as well, so a lot of cranking to get the engine going again, and then it would dump the fuel as if it was, well. So I'm going to try starting things again. I think I'll take the multimeter off. I'll start things again and see what the case is. Engines together, and I tried a warm start, so I got waylaid by something. There's no fuel, which is encouraging. It did take a bit of cranking to get the engine going again. Can't smell fuel. I mean, obviously I don't want to see anything dripping down there or anything. So, I'm going to go for I'm gonna have lunch, then a test drive. Right, so the verdict of the drive, and I've been out and driven everywhere. I mean, come back and there's no fuel leaking there, just a bit of oil's dropped. But you can smell it. And even though you can't see it, you can smell a bit of fuel. You know, stopped, started, drove off, couldn't really see any under the car, but you know it's there. So carb's going to come off tomorrow, and I'm going to fiddle with that float.